is Where the Waters Meet. I'm Christina, and we're here today at the Haggerty Museum of Art at Marquette University with Roy F. Staab.
Yes.
And his exhibition, Prairie Ring. Why do you call this exhibition Prairie Ring?
The Prairie Ring is it's an installation here in the museum, first of all. Mm-hmm. and any kind of installation in the museum has to be planned in advance. And I was working last year on a series of works using ellipses and ovals. And so when I got the nod to do this exhibition, I just carried on that series here in Milwaukee, or here for this installation in Milwaukee, on the series. Mm-hmm. And also, I look for an identification to where I'm working. And Milwaukee is near the prairie. I wanted to use I always use natural materials in my work, or mostly I use natural materials in my work in a rural situation. And since the reed sculptures were mainly set in rural locations, in Milwaukee, the exhibition is reed sculptures, natural materials, and I also wanted to use things of the area for people to identify with.
So you're from Milwaukee originally?
Yeah, born in Milwaukee, educated in Milwaukee.
But then you went out to the rest of the world.
When I finished school, I continued what I was studying. I went off to Europe, and perhaps should have went to New York, but I went to Europe instead. And all the things that I studied in art history, I went to see in Europe. I traveled extensively. In Europe, I of course went to England first, and France, and Italy, and over to the Soviet Union, and over to Berlin, and into Scandinavia, where I wove, and into Spain and North Africa. And that's 4 years. That's 4 years.
That's a lot of years. Yeah. Well, why? Why did you travel everywhere? You know, people often take it as a matter of course that, but some artists don't travel at all. Some artists stay in one place and work there. But I mean, what I'm saying is, I know that many of your exhibitions, like it's the only one that I know of that was done indoors. Is this the first one that's done indoors?
Indoors, yeah.
The very first one. But before this, your other exhibitions that were made of natural reeds are done in outside sites.
Yes.
But like in Finland?
Finland was a commission to do something, and I wasn't sure that the reeds were there. But another artist was there a year before and suggested to a curator, this is a nice site for a temporary exhibition, and it was an arts festival. And they had enough courage to say, yes, something very fragile could be done. And we negotiated it, and they said yes. But I didn't know there were reeds there. And then now we're in the Finland project, but a couple months before I came over, I had guests from Finland, a curator and a person in charge of education. And we walked along the Hudson East River, and he said, yes, there are reeds growing, but nobody knew exactly where they were and how tall they were. Mm-hmm. And what we were going to do. And then I got there, and I met some other people, and we talked, we looked, and couldn't find anything. And then another artist, another photographer, said, yes, they're growing over on the other side in a small pond. And that pond seemed to be like a peat bog. And we found the tallest reeds growing there. Not the same way as in New York, but the same reeds as New York. Mm-hmm. And we had walked out on this waterbed kind of thing to pick them. So now we lost the point, but...
no, that's all right. That's part of the point. Well, the first question was, why did you travel to so many countries? I mean, was it something that you personally felt that you wanted to do, to learn about different...
I'm always curious to see what's on the other side. And I feel just growing up in Milwaukee, I had only one narrow viewpoint of what the world was like. And the books show you photographs. Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry, I have an exhibition of photographs here. But the real work, the real architecture, the real things have a greater impact. Mm-hmm. And the environment, what's around the work, tells you about it. And I'm always misconstrued because I don't like to plan so much ahead. That's baggage also. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was trying to get funding. I'm interested in going to Japan to do something because I thought my way of working, my method, my play of materials, the sensibility, fits the tradition of Japan. So someone in New York recently said, call up Cristo he's going to do a project in Japan. Of course, I want to do the project in Japan and be invited over there because I can't afford the lifestyle there, the money style there, to travel over there. So I have to be invited by somebody to bring me there and to do the work and have permission to do the work. And I call him, and his wife answers the phone, and she says, well, we pay for all the things that we do ourselves. We don't get funded for it. Well, that's partially true. And she says, why don't you do what my husband does and do preparatory drawings? And that's exactly what you said before. Don't talk to me until we're doing this interview, because you're going to lose the freshness. And that's exactly so. I don't want to become dry and dull and bored. I want to do the work on the spot, and I want to discover something while I'm doing it, because I want to be interested in myself. And that's what I feel is very important in making art. And I don't want to repeat myself. I don't want to duplicate something. I want everything. Yes, I do find a technique, and a technique that I feel I mean, these reeds I've been doing 10 years now, and I have done other things in between, but sometimes I want to go back because I felt that I'm not bored with it yet. I have not explored it to its potential. I have worked very far. I went, there's a piece over here where I made the lines far too long. It was 58 feet long, and that was, so it's 23 feet in one unsupported straight line, and the line was wobbling, and I called it a tribute to Philip Guston, because it came a little bit clumsy, a little bit ambiguous, and a little bit overextended. Well, I'm not saying Philip Guston was overextended, but some of his work's a little bit clumsy.
But you're saying that you yourself don't know what the work will be like until it's completed.
No, I'm saying that when I start to do the work, I know what I'm going to do.
You do?
I do.
You know
usually, we go back right to that, what that Indian woman does every morning in front of her house. She draws this yantra, which is a symbol of, I don't know, what's the word? Is it hope or good luck?
Good luck.
Or a good spirit for the day. Maybe that's a better term for it.
Yeah.
And so I come to the site, I look at the site, I know what I did before, I know which piece I did before, and I know which piece, I mean, I don't want to repeat those, but some of those forms I liked, and so I would draw it in the sand, and I would look at the space, and it maybe take 5 minutes, it may take 10 minutes to resolve it. I mean, I won't do the geometry in its perfect way until I'm executing the piece. And then what I learned, I look for a basic central way of feeling and response to my work, and I think maybe I worked like for how the Egyptians calculated the pyramid. So I use a string, a length of string, not a tape measure with numbers on it. Later I measure it out because everybody wants to know what's the size of the piece, so I bring a tape measure down, or I measure the string someplace else. But I take a string and I measure it out, and I fold it in half, and I found a half. Or I fold it in thirds, and it gives my third division, because I'm interested in numbers and systems and geometry. It just happens that way. I don't want to I hate to calculate it. And that's how I do the pieces.
So your preparatory drawings are in your head by now?
I do the sketch, and then it's in my head. But I mean, it evolves. It's not intuitive.
Right, because it's planned.
It's planned, but it's not thoroughly planned. And when the piece is being made, in most cases, it's right. And if it's wrong, I will change it to make it right, because that's the challenge of an artist also. It has to be made right.
Right, I understand, because it's kind of like doing an interview like this. It's like, how will I know what I'll ask until I'm in the conversation? Because with each person it would be different.
Oh yeah,
and it's the same kind of, right, and it's got to be like that, and I could not make a pre-plan of it. I mean, I know I can read about the person, or I can gather information, or I can meet the person, I can get these senses, but then you never know until you're there at the moment. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Because it's more it's spontaneous, it's original, it's on.
It's natural.
It's natural,
yeah.
right. And that's what I'm looking for in my work, yeah.
Right. Oh, okay, so I was just going to say, it's interesting. So how did you come to decide to do a piece indoors? You said you had talked to Dr. Curtis Carter, and so my original thought was that because you were doing a piece indoors, that it would be preserved, but that's not true, is that you take it down. No. I think this piece will last maybe 2,000 years. 2,000 years?
Because if this museum, which has a perfect environment, and if they really respect what I do...
Well, then there could be no other exhibitions, I would think.
Well there's more rooms, and they're also talking about expanding this museum, I think. No, but seriously, I mean, this indoor piece is now set and dry. It's like a basket you would find in King Tut's tomb. It will not deteriorate any farther. It's dry and set. So this could last forever. I mean, this is now in the vault. And that's a kind of a problem, because that's a negative factor to the installation. As there's a negative factor to the photographs, there is something that's lost when it's taken out of its environment and its site. And the piece does not move.
The wind won't change it.
And then I'm working inside the gallery here, and I ask for the walls to be dark blue for the contrast, and so you can, here we go, contrast, so you can see the work. And I worked in here building the piece 4 days, in building the piece, and every day outside it was nice and sunny. And it's like that. Now this becomes work. And I had a job once in New York being a designer in the middle of a skyscraper, and I would go outside in the evening, and I realized it was a wonderful day outside, and I missed the life of the day. And that's what I like about summer. That's why I work outside. And also, I work. This piece is small, and I had a problem in compromising with my feeling. I have a sense that it has to be big. As far as man or I can extend my body to work, I'm doing body art, and I'm doing, this is called land art, because it becomes, it relates to the environment and the land, and I'm extending myself as far as I can. And there's all other factors involved in the work, but so I compromised, and I think for an exhibition of these photographs, this piece, in all its weaknesses, or because it's inside, helps define what the photographs are. It gives you a somewhat of an idea of scale.
Yeah.
And that's important to the work.
Right, and just to see the actual reed is so different than to see it on a photograph. You know,
yeah, but you see, you know, when I proposed this exhibition, I had no idea the reeds were growing here. We can talk about the reeds for a moment. I thought I was going to drive back to New York and bring them back here, which I could have done. And I did. I brought one back here when I flew here first. And I broke it in 3 pieces and carried it on the plane, and I reassembled it here, and it was too high for this space. And I didn't want to drive 1,000 miles each way to bring them back. And I looked at the countryside here in Milwaukee. As we said in the beginning, why did I use reeds? Why did I call it Prairie Ring? And I wanted to use natural materials that grow around. I found the reeds growing in various places, and each time I stopped and picked them. And I brought them here, and I solved the problem. The reeds are growing here. And I called someone else and said, I want to use prairie grass. Where is the prairie grass? What is the prairie grass? And nobody could tell me what prairie grass is. And then I found somebody living in Oconomowoc, and he said, he knew prairie grass. He said, this is prairie grass, and this will be ripe now, and that'll be ripe now. And then I have a friend, Betty Koch, who works for the museum here, and I said, Betty, you know about prairie grass, because she's involved with plants and gardens and things like that. And she said, well, goldenrod is even prairie grass. So I grabbed the goldenrod that's right now in yellow flower, and there's white goldenrod, or is that golden? Or something of the same plant. And I was looking for smells, because I wanted to employ smells in this sterile environment of the gallery. And so that's part of it. I mean, that's part of the materials that that's here. You asked me about how the longest, I'll give you the longest piece of reed sculpture is the piece that's situated over here. I made it at Storm King. It happened to be the biggest piece I made, because it was made at the edge of a mountain, on the edge of the Hudson River, and where I thought the reeds were growing from the lookout, because they built a road in the 30s from West Point to a place called Cornwall on the Hudson, and it went around the face of the mountain, halfway up the mountain. Gorgeous view. The roads was one of these dangerous roads that serpentined around them. And I made it to be seen from the outlook on the mountain. And so I made it large. And normally I work on sand, and this was mud. So I was working for 8 days in a foot of mud. So there's a little track around the pieces I was making, and it was 70 by 120 feet. And talking about challenging nature and gods. But they were good to me, because the mountain protected from the north wind, which is always that strong wind when the fronts come down in the Hudson River Valley as well as here. And what was bad about it is that Cornelius Vanderbilt built the railroad system and his empire by destroying the whole Hudson River line. And both sides of the river have railroad tracks on it. So he was straightening out the river with railroad tracks, but he left a little passage for the water to come in and out in this protected bay where I chose to work. And that's in this little passage, the tide. Now the whole Hudson River, which I researched very much to do work, has a 4.5-foot tide thereabouts every day, twice a day, up to down, up and down. And that brings things in and out. So it was like a rush of water coming in, a rush of water coming out. And then with the reeds going up and down, it was like the mouth of a Baleine whale, and it would filter out, and the seaweed would come in and collect, and sometimes we would break that front wall of the sculpture. And I would come back periodically and repair it. But it lasted 2.5 months. 2.5 months? Yeah. So that's a challenge. That's wonderful. So that was...
that's longer than 5 hours.
July, August, and into September. Yeah, much longer than 5 hours.
Right.
And then I came back. I did the Hudson River Project in 1989. I got a grant from the New York State Council on the Arts. And I said I'll do 6. I did 9 sculptures. And it was sponsored by the Woodstock Guild. Great Woodstock Festival up there. And so on my way up to exhibit the photographs to top off the grant requirements and the project, I drove past all the sites I worked on. And I looked down, and there the site was perfectly clean, as if I never was there. And I was very happy. I was very happy that I made my statement for 2 months or 2.5 months, and now it was as before. The reeds all washed back to the river where they came from, or because they came from by the river. They dissolved in the river. They stopped at the bank where they belonged. So I didn't ruin anything. I feel I didn't ruin anything. And the site was pristine again. And if I want, it's renewable. I can build there again. And as I go in the Hamptons, I go back to the same sites once in a while, every couple of years, and I do another piece. Because some of the situations are right. Now I've been working at some of the same sites. I repeat I go to the sites periodically. Because they're familiar sites. I know the materials are there. And also, that's part of the convenience of working. I mean, I don't always have a car to lug things around. And I don't want to walk so far. And also, when the things grow nearby, they belong there. They become part of the site. It's related. I mean, one of the photographs there have the birds, house swallows, that migrate along the East Coast in September when I like to work. And they went from the reeds to my sculpture and back and forth in a big flock. Of course, on this sculpture, I mean, I waited 3 weeks for the wind to become calm. It was the day it was calm when the birds were migrating. And I hushed them away, and I started swearing at them, and the birds wouldn't listen. I guess they don't know those words. Polite birds. And they were destroying the sculpture in front of me. And there was nothing to do but photograph it while the birds were there, and the birds became part of it. And also it created more of an interest to the photograph. When the sculptures don't last anyhow very long, all right, let nature take its course quicker than I want it, and in front of my eyes. But it's a positive statement as well.
Like life.
Like life.
Like
yeah.
Things happen in life. Yeah.
Wait, no, I didn't finish.
All right, finish.
Because so I worked periodically in the same place, and I had a couple exhibitions in the Hamptons on my sculpture, on my photographs of my sculpture. So, and the newspaper out there was very cooperative. The Southampton Press wrote the first article about me, Mary Cummings, a nice person, and she came in the water in her little bikini. This 45-year-old woman. A good camera, better camera than I had, and that worked real well, and I got publicity and all that. And then I gave a lecture at the East Hampton Center for Contemporary Art in 1988, and then I came back periodically to do work, always in the end of summer. And the last time I did this body of work up in Amagansett, I announced to everybody again about the sculpture taking place, and all these people still wouldn't come and experience what I was doing. So I was disappointed that the audience was so hard to come by. And even some of the people who are aware of art would say, this is too hard to come to. But it wasn't hard to come to. It's just the idea of getting off that soft chair like we're sitting on now, or getting out of that car, and sort of experience what life's about. Well, also it was amazing kind of think about where we live now in this day and age. We have heating. We live in houses in the city. We hate bugs. and all that kind of thing. And when I started building this, I brought the boxes of prairie grass, which had a great smell. This place was full of smell, but everybody in the office was kind of complaining. They weren't accustomed to the smell of nature. I mean, we're so alienated from what nature is. I suffer from the idea. I learned how important it is. I mean, it's like going to a supermarket and having to select that one kind of apple, that one kind of potato, that one piece of meat if you eat meat, and that's the limit. Our diet, our way of life has been so narrow. And that's also another reason about going to Europe, because they eat these terrible things, that artichokes, oh my God. The first artichoke I ate, I threw away the heart. I didn't know how to eat it. And then someone showed me how to do it. I learned how to drink wine with meals and eat this runny Camembert cheese that has this great taste. But in Milwaukee, I never knew anything about it. And I'm not talking about nouvelle cuisine and yuppie behavior. I'm just talking about opportunities to do more things, because, or going and eating Arab food with your hands.
Right.
I mean, poor Queen Elizabeth, who couldn't take off her gloves. But you have this center tagine, and you open it up, and it's had camel. I mean, a great camel. I mean, it's a little tough if you eat it like a steak. But when it was ground up with the tige of the artichoke, that's the stem, and you boil that, and it has great taste. And you go into the store, and all you eat is the head. Well, there's more parts to that. You know, it's like eating frog legs. I mean, there are extensions that are not normally eaten that taste wonderful. Our culture is very limited. How sophisticated we are, and as isolated as we are, and alienated as we are to nature. So, working in nature, okay, it's not in the norm of the gallery, but this is where this is, for me, the full experience. My work is out in nature. It becomes harmonious in nature. Because there, that gives you all the little things around it. That's preparing you to see the work. That is giving the contributions. When the sun is right, when the water is right, and the piece is there and right for me, it's gorgeous. And then that's when I photograph it. Now, I can't find a photographer to sit with me all this time. And sometimes I'm there and I wait for the light to be right. Sometimes the light's not right. I come there early in the morning and the weather, the front comes through. Well, that I can't control. But some mornings it is right. And I can enjoy what I do.
So, you know, I would say, though, that I would think that to have something like this in a museum would begin to invite people to come out to nature.
Exactly.
Because maybe they wouldn't be as frightened. Isn't that strange? That just to put this here would maybe make people not as frightened of the experience.
I agree with you. I think so, too. But you see, I'm showing you and them that this experience can happen.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of the statement. I mean, and also it shows you that there has to be respect to what is there in nature, and nature has to be respected. I mean, it's this crisis that we are of no more air and all this ozone, and that's a problem. You have to remember things take time. And
effort, a certain effort.
Effort and process, and that's something to do with quality of life. It's I have the nature. I know how to sew. If I have a hole in my sock, I will repair that sock instead of throwing it away. Why? Because everything is sewed together anyhow. And it's maybe shoddy because we're shipping it over to some place where we're exploiting someone's labor, where it's made cheaper and fast. And believe me, those people are working fast for their low thing. And that I went to Marshall Fields, and I think this shirt is a nice new shirt that I got for this exhibition. I think it's made in Taiwan or some Oriental country, which is exploited because they work cheaper. And I don't know what the quality of their life is over there because I'm not over there, but I don't think that's right. And then they say, American made? Well, maybe Americans should maybe take a little bit more time. Oh, that's a terrible political statement. You take time, find a little love in what you do. I love what I do. I don't like to be under pressure, though. And there's something about, again, time. When I worked here in the museum, The negative factor is that people start work here at 7 or 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and they finish at 4:30, and it's out. The security alarm goes on, and everybody's gone. And as an artist working on installation, it was the same thing. It's either it come 7 to 4:30, and you couldn't work any longer because the alarm system was on. And when I'm working in nature, there's certain things that have to be considered. It takes X amount of time to put it up. It takes X amount of time to get some of the horizontal reeds wet in water and put it up, and then they have to be set in place and bound in place, and it takes that much time. Mm-hmm. And then the piece is ready, and then you have to wait for the sun to be ready. And I'm dependent upon all those natural factors and the sun factors in the work, and that's called agrarian time. Agrarian means agricultural time. Like when the farmer got up to plant the seeds, when it rained, they grew. When it rained, sometimes he couldn't work, so he sat in the house and waited till the rain stopped, and he went out there again because he was dependent upon those two things to work together to get his crop. And that's the sense of time. It's not running here, running there, although that makes things convenient in our civilization and our time. Mm-hmm. But that necessarily is not my time. When I'm tired, I want to sleep. If I'm out late at night, I want to sleep the next morning. If I come to work, I feel terrible. My body says I feel terrible. Mm-hmm. And it's not saying that I should not go out at night. I mean, I want to have that freedom to do so. But the clock is something I don't want to watch. Mm-hmm. But it's just a thing of convenience. Mm-hmm. But making art in nature, I'm at the mercy of the elements, so I'm an Aquarian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I can tell from your work that you love it.
I do, yeah.
Mm-hmm. This has been Where the Waters Meet. I'm Christina, and we were talking today with Roy F. Staab at the Haggerty Museum of Art at Marquette University. And thank you.
And thank you very much.